Good evening and welcome to the Hendrick Hudson School Board of Education 2025 Candidates Forum. My name is Janine Eichenholz and I am the co-chair of the HUD PTA Advocacy Committee, a standing committee of the 4 PTA units of the Hendrick Hudson School District. I'm joined here tonight by fellow advocacy co-chairs Lisa Anderson, also representing the high school PTSA along with me, and Romeo St. John, who is representing the elementary school PTA. The SEPTA PTA, Special Education PTA, is Chris Yarchaki, and the Blue Mountain Middle School PTA position is currently open. Our PTAs are independent, non-political organizations, and it is our pleasure to be hosting tonight's event. This year, we have 4 candidates running for 3 open trustee positions on our Board of Education. Each trustee position is for a 3-year term. The school board election will take place next Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. Voting will be held in person at the Frank G. Lindsay School behind the high school at 57 Trolley Road in Montrose. Voting hours are from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. Information on absentee and early voting ballots is available on the district website at henhudschools.org. Tonight's candidates forum is being moderated by Haley Morris and Braden Mulligan, both scholar athlete juniors from Hendrick Hudson High School. Haley Morris is on the varsity soccer team and part of the Unified Sports Program. She maintains a high A average and is a member of the Math and Hispanic Honor Societies, is president of the Junior Club, and is part of the Peer Leadership Program. Outside of school, she works in a local restaurant and participates in youth leadership events, but is most happy when she is on a beach with her family. I think we all agree with that. Braden Mulligan is a member of the Science, Math, and Hispanic Honor Societies, as well as the Peer Leadership Program, where he works with underclassmen and the Sailor Program. He maintains an A average while also staying active with Scout Troop 36 and is a member of the Cortland Community Rowing Association. In each of these activities, he guides younger peers as a senior patrol leader and co-captain of his team, respectively. Braden also is involved with a number of animal foster and adoption organizations and loves to work with foster animals of all shapes and sizes. Our use of students as moderators was approved by our superintendent and the high school principal, and these students were recommended to us by their advisor in the Peer Leadership Program. Importantly, their inclusion this evening allows for both student engagement and real-world experiences, 2 pillars of our district's strategic plan. We are proud of Haley and Braden and their accomplishments thus far in their HUD careers, and we thank them very much for giving up their time tonight to be here with us. The PTA Advocacy Committee received 112 questions from 18 individuals. This year, we followed a different approach to selecting the final list of questions for tonight's event. In order to act with complete transparency and to ensure the integrity of this process, the Advocacy Committee sought advice from both our region PTA and the president of the local League of Women's Voters, whose guidelines and policies we follow in organizing this forum, and which will be reviewed by our moderators shortly. With the advice of these individuals, we invited each PTA unit to seek volunteers from their membership to serve on a question committee. We received at least 1 volunteer from each unit, and for the unit that offered more than 1 person, we used the online Wheel of Names, which randomly selected 1 representative to sit on the committee. This year's question committee members were Martha Marrero, Juliana Hudson, Suzanne Magliana, and Tanya Levine. Thank you to those fantastic people. They put a lot of hard work into this. The committee began by reviewing the list of prospective candidate questions as compiled by the Westchester Putnam School Boards Association. They then read and reviewed every single question submitted by the community. They came up with a representative set of questions that encompasses as wide a variety of topics as possible for tonight's program, with the goal of ensuring that the final questions chosen are relevant to the specific role of a board trustee and the trustee's responsibilities, and also keeping in mind that we have to finish by 9 p.m. In determining the final questions, they did their best to identify those that would elicit the most meaningful responses and provide the best information possible. Some questions were combined and some were revised for clarity and to ensure fairness to all of our candidates. The committee did its best to retain the original intention behind each question. If your question did not make the final list and you would like to address it to any of the candidates, you may do so using the contact information that each has provided. There's a list at the front of the room in front of Greg's computer, and there's also a list by the door, so you can grab a picture of that on your way out if you'd like. In addition, just really quick, we also put QR codes to the advocacy program that we ran in March, the role of a board trustee. There's a QR code that'll lead you to the actual presentation and one that'll take you to the PowerPoint presentation, and that's also on both tables. The information available here, we will also share it via email from our advocacy committee and on our Facebook page. As a reminder, no questions will be permitted from the floor tonight. Once more, I will serve as your timekeeper. Displaying a countdown clock on an iPad, we've ensured that the candidates can all see it from the front row. The moderators will also be able to see it and we'll let them know so they can keep track. I'll hold up a red card when time is up to let the candidates know time is over. Thank you to the candidates for making yourselves available tonight for the forum. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions in advance. Thank you to all of you who are here tonight and who are watching and listening at home. Don't forget to get out and vote next Tuesday. With that, I'm done. I'm going to hand it over to our student moderators and let them take it from here.
Good evening, and welcome to the Hendrick Hudson School Board Candidates Forum. This forum will be recorded in its entirety and will be available for viewing on the district's YouTube channel with a link posted on the district website. Other than the official district recording, personal recording of this event is prohibited. No candidate or any other individual will be allowed to use or edit media footage of the forum for campaign purposes. However, the link to the recording in its entirety can be shared. Before we begin, we'd like to remind you to please mute your phones.
The 4 ground rules being used tonight were created by the League of Women Voters and have been presented to all candidates, as well as the moderators, by the Hen Hood PTA Advocacy Committee. Each candidate had the opportunity to review the rules prior to this evening's event. Earlier this evening, in the presence of the candidates, the moderators drew the candidates' names randomly to determine the order of speaking. The reverse order will be used for closing statements. The order of answering questions will be rotated with each new question. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement and 1.5 minutes for a closing statement. All candidates will be asked the same question, and each will be given 1.5 minutes to respond. If needed, the candidates may request to hear a question again. If a candidate requests clarification on a question, the moderators will defer to the advocacy and question committees, which created the list of questions. A candidate will be allowed to finish a sentence once started, but the moderator will enforce strict time limits. If a candidate does not use all the time allotted for a response, the unused time may not be applied to any other purpose or question. A visual timer will be employed by the timekeeper so that the moderators and candidates can see the time remaining. The timekeeper will hold up a red card when the time has expired. As a reminder, audience questions were collected in advance and will not be taken during the forum. Candidates will not interrupt one another or the moderator during the forum. The moderator has the authority to pause the proceedings to enforce the ground rules and format. Candidates were not provided with any of the questions in advance. Except for time limits, the only restriction on candidate statements and question answers is respect and civility.
There are 4 candidates running for 3 seats on the school board. In the order of their opening statements, the candidates are Alexis Bernard, Allison Hubin, hope I'm saying that right, Erica Mills, and Jeremy Basso. We will now begin with opening statements. As a reminder, each candidate will have 2 minutes for their opening statement.
As a lifelong resident of the Hendrick Hudson School District and a proud graduate of Hen Hud, I'm deeply committed to the success and stability of our schools. I'm also fortunate to be married to a fellow Hen Hud alum, and together we're raising our 3 children in the same community that shaped us. From 2021 to 2024, I had the honor of serving on the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education, including 2 years as the board president. During my time on the board, we faced significant challenges and major transitions, moments that demanded thoughtful leadership, collaboration, and resilience. I'm proud of the steady hand we provided during uncertain times. Some accomplishments include hiring a new superintendent, Mr. Michael Trombley, supporting new ELA curriculum for elementary students and teachers, conducting a long overdue policy audit and update that brought about shared decision-making and safety improvements, planning and passing a roughly $30 million capital project, and establishing several critical committees such as professional development and curriculum. Under my leadership, we established the Energy System Tax Stabilization Reserve, we implemented zero-based budgeting, and did not exceed the tax cap. After completing my term, I took a year off to reset and refocus, spending time with my family while continuing to stay engaged and informed. Now I'm ready to return, trained, experienced, and fully prepared to serve once again. Our district deserves board members who not only understand the history, but also have the knowledge and training to build a stable future. I bring not only passion for our schools, but a proven record of leadership and a deep-rooted connection to this community. Most importantly, I understand that effective leadership isn't just about having ideas. It's about listening, learning, and being open to the perspectives of others. I value the voices of students, families, educators, and community members, and I believe that meaningful progress happens when we work together and truly hear one another. I would be honored to once again represent our students, families, and staff and help ensure that Hendrick Hudson continues to grow stronger together. Thank you to everyone who had a hand in making tonight happen, and thank you to all who have joined us in person as well as virtually.
Hi, everybody. I am Allison Hubin. You said it right. And I'm very happy that I finally get to introduce myself to everybody and tell you that that is how you say my last name, Hubin. I have two kids in the district. I have a second grader at BV and I have a sixth grader at Blue Mountain Middle School. I bring with me a lot of previous board experience from boards of directors, advisory committees, and most recently, 2 years as a vice president on the HHCSD, the newly formed elementary school PTA. I'm also a member, still doing the committees. I'm a chair of both the fundraising and spirit wear committees this year. I'm also a member of the Blue Mountain Middle School PTA and SEPTA. I have a local small business as a photographer, and some of you probably don't even know, but you've seen my work in such publications as the Yearbook, Little League, Buchanan Day Camp, and my voice is also cartoonish sometimes. So that was kind of fun. And Camp Nabby I do in the summers, and I'm also an early intervention specialist. So I'm a licensed social worker. I work with kids who have learning and developmental delays, helping them get ready to enter the school system. When I was getting my master's degree at NYU, we had a guest speaker who came to talk to us about social workers in politics. And I thought, well, how? And she said that the people who are making the decisions for the people that we serve, they deserve a seat at the table. So there should always be a social worker there. And that is why I am here today, because I would like a seat at this table. Hi, Mom. She's watching from Denver.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Erica Mills, and I am proud to be running for re-election to the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education. I'm running because I care deeply about our students, our staff, and the future of our schools, and because the work we have started as a board is not yet done. Thank you to the Hen Hud PTA Advocacy Committee for organizing tonight's event, and to our student moderators, your service is truly appreciated. My husband Chad and I have lived in the district for nearly 24 years. We've raised our two children here. Our son graduated from Hen Hud in 2023, and our daughter is currently a junior. For over 15 years, I've served our schools as PTA president at the elementary and middle school levels, as VP of the high school PTSA, and as a member of multiple district building level committees. These roles, and now my time as a trustee, vice president, and currently board president, have grounded me in student-first leadership. Professionally, I own and operate 2 local magazines, which requires budgeting, communication, and strategic planning, all directly relevant to my board service. Over the past 3 years, I've supported key initiatives, including a new ELA curriculum aligned with the science of reading, enhanced social and emotional learning supports, the addition of cost-neutral, universal pre-K programs to support our families and our youngest learners, expanded access to academic interventions in special education, the development and successful passage of a capital bond for infrastructure upgrade, expanded committees to support more collaborative and informed decision-making, and the adoption of a zero-based budgeting approach, along with the establishment of reserve funds for long-term financial stability. As part of the board's policy team all 3 years, I have helped lead a full audit in partnership with NISBA. Since August 2023, we have revised or introduced over 130 policies to ensure clear compliance and student-centered governance. With leadership transitions and complex budget decisions ahead, continuity and experience matter. I'm running to help Hen Hud with steady, informed leadership and to continue collaborating with our dedicated staff and engaged community to preserve and grow the many strengths of our Hendrick Hudson district. Tonight, I hope you learn more about my vision and my years of dedicated work for Hendrick Hudson.
Yep, hold on, bring it back. There you go. Good evening. My name is Jeremy Basso, and I'm an almost lifetime resident of Hendrick Hudson School District, as well as a current trustee on the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education. This community is incredibly important to my family and I. After all, this is the community that helped shape me through all stages of my life, including where I went to school, met my wife, launched the company I founded, and where we started our family. We have a wonderful district, and I'm incredibly proud of the work that the board has accomplished during my first term. We had a unique opportunity to rebuild the entire central office team, and I have no doubt it will be one of the best in Westchester. Policy has been at the forefront of the last 3 years. From a policy review that has updated, added, and removed over 130 policies, including an Narcan policy, shared decision-making, and a policy reduced the property tax burden for veterans. Additionally, we established a renewed focus on safety and security, including the introduction of a budget-neutral full-time member to our safety and security team, and also leveraging broader community leadership relationships to support the passing of the stop arm camera laws in Westchester County. We approved the new ELA curriculum while adhering to the new literacy standards dictated by New York State, supported the addition of intramural sports in 6th grade, and HUD Life was added for high school students, and the Academy program has renewed life. Continuity of leadership is a recent topic, and what better way to maintain the spirit of continuity than re-electing the very people who are part of the positive changes in Hendrick Hudson. I would be honored to represent our community for another 3 years to support children and our esteemed staff. We have 5 buildings and a central office filled with some of the best educators in New York State. While the value I bring is not as an educator, I'm certain my experience in both life and business is an asset to our board and our district. My perspective is unique in that I built, owned, and managed a company with a budget exceeding Hendrick Hudson. My complementary strength, however, is building teams. While I was ultimately responsible for revenue and expenses, it wasn't I that ensured we met our goals. It was the team. I didn't do it alone. I could never have built half of what we built alone. It was the team and the culture whose ultimate worth was greater than the sum of its parts. I would love to leverage my professional experience and continue working with our district in the role of trustee while we lead Hendrick Hudson through the 21st century and help shape the leaders of our tomorrows.
Lisa, Allison goes first.
At this time, we will ask a series of questions as compiled by the question committee. Each candidate will have 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond. The first question will begin with Allison Hu. What do you see as the major issues facing our school district? Which one would you address first and why?
Okay. Obviously, one of the biggest concerns we have in this district right now is the operating budget that we need to have to sustain this district over the next 20 years. We've got a few years left on the cessation fund and the pilot funding that came from Indian Point. But once that runs out, we need a solution so that we can fill that gap without putting the burden on the taxpayers and without cutting too much from our schools, from our programming, from our staffing, from our teachers. We don't want the children in the schools to suffer, first and foremost. So as far as the first priority, I would make sure that the schools don't lose anything that's vital. And that includes special education, which right now with the Department of Education, we are watching a lot of changes happen from the top down. So we need to make sure that we're being very protective of our special education funding and programs. Those kids are the most vulnerable in our district and in the country. We need to make sure that they are protected first and foremost. So I've heard some ideas on the ground that I really am appreciative of, and I think that we've actually started some of the groundwork from the board and advocacy committee meeting with elected officials to try and get some funding redirected back into our district that would create a sustainable source of income over the next however long we can get that funding. So that's where it started.
Rita, do you just mind reading the last part of that question?
Yes.
You can read the whole thing again, but.
What do you see as the major issues facing our school district? Which one would you address first and why?
Okay, so I think everyone knows, Allison is correct. Our number one issue here and concern is around our budgeting and how we budget and how we plan. And the board, even before us, did a really good job of making sure that we were on a path where we could maintain as much program as possible
and ensure that we also are meeting all of our mandates, because there's a lot of mandates that go along with special education, transportation, and all of the ENL. We have to make sure we're supporting all of our students. So I would say the main issue is maintaining programs and ensuring that we can retain and hire and continue with our world-class staff to support our students. I think we're doing a good job. We're getting there, and we've the tax stabilization reserve fund that we have now put money aside into, a lot of the money that we've saved. We're looking much better from a planning standpoint. And we also are setting up multiple other reserves to support this. I will also say that we established, in support of this, what we've done so far is there's a multitude of things. We've gotten outside support from, Senator Harcum has provided our district with $1 million this year and last year. And we're working with different, senators. We're working with local, and we're working with the federal government officials to try to get some support here long-term. So that's what I would do immediately.
Well, the good news is, I'm not so certain that there's going to be a variation of answers as it relates to this question, because I think we're all fairly aware that the financial outlook is probably the most challenging opportunity that we have in front of us. And I think that we also have to be gracious in thanking the prior boards that sat before us since the Indian Point decision that came, as well as the administration team that preceded the one we have today, and that they did a very good job in building up our reserves, which we were able to then utilize for a tax, energy, and stabilization fund. Outside of what the major issue is and what do you attack first, I think that is a continuation of an existing problem. I don't know that you attack it first. I think that we have to continue to manage it. Financial resources are incredibly important, and there is a balance without putting undue impact on the community, but also ensuring that we provide an environment that families want to come because the offering in our district is world class, but also that our staff is attracted. We're able to retain top tier talent and also attract top talent, because if you don't have a great opportunity to educate children, it's not an environment where people want to work. So I think that that balance is one of the most important, and building the relationships with the bargaining units within the district is an incredibly important opportunity for us to be able to attract talent and encourage academic development amongst our students.
All right, well, this is really fun because now I'm the last and I have all the same things to say. Obviously, the financial landscape of our district has been our challenge. I sat on the finance committee for the full 3 years that I served on the board. Year one, I had no idea what was going on. And anyone that says they do is fibbing. After year one, I think it was much easier to get accustomed to how the budget works and really dive in. And as a board and as a trustee, we insisted on doing a zero-based budget approach. We couldn't just keep rolling forward a budget, because that's, if you're not looking at the individual lines, you don't actually know what's in your budget. So rather than just looking at all the departments and what the lump sum is, what is every dollar and what is every line? And you can kind of change where you're allocating money based on the needs of the students. So that was very exciting in year 2 and year 3 for me. I'd love to see the cessation fund extended. I don't think it's impossible. I could be wrong. We need to keep up with our advocacy work and working with legislators to try to, bring more money into the district. However, finance aside, I think there has to be a heavy focus on curriculum. I'm very excited that we've hired a new assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction, and I think that we as a board have to continue, or I'm not on right now, would have to continue to support our administrators so that we can make for the richest curriculum possible to bring HHCSD back to the best school.
All right, the second question of the night is, what role should the board play in partnership with the administration in shaping curriculum goals, including AP, arts, music, honors, and enrichment programs?
Okay, so this is an interesting question. It's one of those things as a board member that the community misunderstands our role in as trustees. So we help to set the budget parameters and the limits within the budget. After that, we can advocate even as parents and as people that have been through the system with, like my own children. But at the end of the day, those recommendations and what the students need is gonna come from the administration. So the administration, the principals, the staff, and honestly, the students. So we have moved to, at a district level, asking the students what they want, at least at the secondary level. This is where it becomes, a little nuanced. I mean, I have a lot of opinions about what I think is important and what I value, but you're asking me as a board trustee. I would work as closely as possible to make sure that we can maintain as much as we possibly can based on the needs of our students and the wants of our students. I support, maintaining our AP courses, expanding our college level courses at our secondary level, but also looking at what do we need after high school? There's gonna be kids that go on, or that are gonna want to explore college paths, but also paths in tech and getting certifications and working their way right out of, BOCES and into jobs. So this is a very nuanced question. I know how I feel about it as a person, but as a board member, I don't get that much say in what actually done.
How I answer this question today is entirely different from how I would have answered this question 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I would have shared an awful lot of opinions that frankly don't matter because it's not truly our decision. What I would do in order to support world-class education, maintaining academic rigor, providing opportunities for children and students as they continue their life after high school. I think we need to prepare children not only for the high school to college pipeline, but I think career-ready education opportunities are also equally important. And I think we have a growing number of students who are starting to recognize that there is an alternative path to life after high school, and it doesn't necessarily include the college pipeline. That is not an indication that I don't support every opportunity to support each student and giving each child what they need, but rather to make certain that it is clear that there is a multitude of pathways that we need to make certain that we are providing as an institution on behalf of the students in our district. The board is responsible for budget parameters and advocating for their beliefs, but it is ultimately up to the administration to utilize the budget that is approved by the community outside of the contractual obligations that we have, so that they utilize those resources, the financial resources, as they best see fit for the student value that we have.
All right, so the role of a board member is really to oversee the education of our community's youth. We do this through creating a shared vision and goals for the district. We monitor student success, we adopt and maintain district policies, and we're responsible for fiscal oversight. And we hire and evaluate the superintendent. So whether Alexis Bernard agrees or not, right? Even if I was an educator, it's not my role or my purview to tell them what to do. So we have to trust the administrators who we oversee the superintendent, and also trust data. So before decisions are made, whether you're going to make a change, whether you're going to remove something, whether you're going to add, improve, buy curriculum, implement new process, as a board, you have to trust the administration and you have to rely on data before you make any decisions. And yeah, that's it.
One of the greatest things about this district that I'm learning as my kids are getting older are the enrichment programs. They are such wonderful programs for kids to explore who they are and who they want to be and what they love and what their interests are. So things like the music program. The middle school just had their chorus concert last night, and they got a big accolade this year as being one of the best communities for music education. And I think that's awesome. I think what we need to make sure that we do as a board is that we keep funding those programs and keep that staff as much as humanly possible to keep those enrichment programs going for these kids. So like one of the programs at the middle school that I just heard at the sixth grader panel was that they might no longer have the advanced art studio where the middle school kids were getting half a credit before they go to high school in art. And I want to make sure that as a board, we're being aware of the fact that we can advocate And if it is part of the budgeting and it is part of the hiring process that we can oversee, that program, the Advanced Art Studio, the Project Lead the Way, where we have these staff members who maybe retiring, or maybe we're not thinking of funding those enrichment programs. Those are super important to our students, and it's really important for their enrichment. And I think we do have influence over those things, and so since we are overseeing the hiring, since we are overseeing that budget, to make sure that we protect those enrichment programs as they relate to the curriculum, and advocating for the administration to protect those programs as well.
Based on our district's current academic programs and other offerings, would you recommend any changes? Please elaborate on your answer.
It's an interesting question. I'm not an educator, and I am not certain that I am the appropriate person to indicate what programs we should or shouldn't offer. I have opinions. I would like to see more life-ready skills. I would love to see programs in the high school that are enabling students to come out prepared to run their own life at a personal level outside of an academic institution. Life skills, checkbook balancing, understanding the concept of taxes, understanding how payroll taxes work. It's amazing how many grownups I know who don't truly understand why their overtime check has more taxes taken out than a regular check at a higher percentage. And it's not an insult to the people, it's rather there is a lack of understanding the functionality of how these types of systems work. And I think it would be wonderful if there was ways to introduce it. The reality is, it's not my call. We have a director of course, now an assistant, soon to be assistant superintendent of curriculum instruction. We have a superintendent. We have high school principals. We have curriculum committees. And these are academic professionals whose job is to bring forth the interest that they have, both as educators and that the student body is indicating to them that they're interested in learning. And I think utilizing the data that's available and the professionals that are in our buildings is the appropriate path. I don't think it is appropriate for the board to indicate what types of programs they want. It's not our purview, and it's not something that I would feel comfortable pushing forth on the district.
So as a trustee on the board, you are 1/7 of a governing body. Yes, you can add input. Yes, you can give feedback. However, it is as a unit that you can make decisions. And that question, if I've heard it correctly, doesn't really sound like something that's within the purview of the board. It's certainly an administrative decision, and they should be working through their channels to figure out those answers. I do think the beauty of a board is one that is innovative and looking towards the future. I think Jeremy just mentioned life skills and so on and so forth. For example, HHCSD Life was a new class that was added while I've served on the board. I didn't come up with it. The administration did. They proved why they needed it, and it went on. I think that from my past experience on the board, we also like to preserve traditions here. But maybe make them new and special and magical and add to them. So again, I think my answer to that is it is an administrative function. However, the board has to be able to see data, understand the need for changes or improvements and go from there.
Could you read the question one more time? Thank you.
Based on our district's current academic programs and other offerings, would you recommend any changes? Please elaborate on your answer.
I would be new to the board, so for me to speak up and say, I think we should change stuff would probably be overstepping a little bit. But what I can say is that we have made major curriculum changes in the district based on input from teachers and from the educators in our building who are saying, this system just doesn't work, this curriculum just doesn't work, or this curriculum is much better. I think getting feedback from the educators, getting feedback from the teachers, and then looking at the data and looking at the testings and the scores to say, this math program is wonderful. Let's keep going let's bring this into the K-2 building. Or this reading program, these kids aren't coming into high school prepared to read. They're not good writers yet. This reading curriculum that we're doing, this literacy program. So we have a new one called Into Reading. A lot of teachers are very excited about it. They're getting training in it. And that was because we learned that a curriculum that we were using for literacy prior to that wasn't giving our students the preparation they needed to go into the higher levels of schools. So I think getting the feedback from the community and talking to the teachers and being sort of a bridge between the community, the teachers, and the administration is a really good role for the board to play in influencing curriculum without making decisions for the schools and teachers.
So I'm gonna answer this question a little differently. So I'm gonna talk about what we've done to ensure that we have the correct programs in place for our students. So I'm gonna start with, and because it really is not the board's role, right, to choose and pick curriculum. I will tell you, we have put through multiple policies that put a process in place for our curriculum teams and our teachers to put through the right curriculum and even courses for our students. So that's something that we've worked on. We have a very clear process and procedure in place now. We've also brought back our curriculum committee, which is a committee made up of multiple staff members, the Board of Education, district administrators. That committee, there's a process in place now for them to put through course. So of course, they want to offer a course, they bring it through that committee and it goes through a full process. So we're not picking what to change. It's coming up through our staff, which is really the proper way to do it. And it gets to the board. The ELA curriculum, like we saw a major need, and because we review student data. When you review student data, the board starts asking questions about, why does this look like this? How can we improve it? Our teachers already, we found out that question, that our teachers were already talking about this. So we were able to pilot a program, bring a new ELA curriculum, and hopefully very soon, a new math curriculum to elementary.
The district strategic plan includes 4 pillars: student engagement, real-world experiences, clear and targeted communications, and shared decision-making. What are your thoughts on its current progress and what still needs to be accomplished?
This was gonna come up when it was me. So when I joined the board, the strategic plan was already underway. And when I left, we were in the implementation phase. To be honest, I don't know to date which items are remaining on that list. Personally, it's a slow moving process for sure. There are a lot of items on there that started to be implemented, but we're really building level. I think that soon we're actually technically due for a new strategic plan. I think 26, right? So we should be at the final stages of this plan and all of the items. I personally would like to see more community engagement in a future plan. And I don't know how you go about doing that. I probably have to rely on the professionals, but it's often that we hear from the same people over and over. So reaching new areas and corners of the community would be wonderful so that we could have a little bit more input. I remember being on the board and seeing the feedback coming in and different ideas, and it was the same, folks, same batch of us over and over. So I think that whatever is left on the strategic plan should be implemented because that is what was built. But as we head towards 2026, I think that we need to really consider how we begin and who operates it, how we run it, and how we build for the future.
So I was doing my homework and I went on the Hen HUD district website so I could learn about the policies and learn about procedures and learn about strategic plans. I wanted to see what was done in the past, what's planned for the future, so I could come in here prepared. And I saw the strategic plan and it stuck out in my mind because it's a picture of my kid's friend on the front cover. And I remember when it came in the mail and I was like, oh my gosh, did you see so-and-so's on the cover? So it stuck out in my mind. We're halfway through the strategic plan, which was 5 years, 2022 to 2027. And there is another document, it's actually a slide presentation on the website that shows status. Some of it has been updated, some of it is recently in March, some of it hasn't been updated at all, but each one, it's so difficult to read as a layperson that I didn't get a lot of information because I wasn't really sure what the status was because it was difficult, but I went back to the strategic plan and I read it again and it's clear, it's concise, it has graphics. So why don't we do this again halfway through and here's where we are. on each of these initiatives. You know, 1A, 1B, 1C, do it just like we did before, and here's where we started, here's where we're going, here's where we are now. A simple and clear communication to the families of the district. It can be printed, it can be online, that will bring everybody up to speed on where we are, because right now it's really hard to figure out how it's going.
You mind repeating the question?
The district strategic plan includes 4 pillars: student engagement, real-world experiences, clear and targeted communications, and shared decision-making. What are your thoughts on its current progress and what still needs to be accomplished?
So this is one of those things that I'm incredibly close to because I've been involved since the very beginning when we started developing it. This year, I will start with the district in and of itself has set the strategic plan as its goal. So this year, we have board goals and we have district goals, and the district goals this year are aligned completely with the strategic plan. There was a slideshow in a board meeting that gave every single one of our departments assigned tasks for this year to complete. Shared decision-making is one of those things that came out in the strategic plan. The board, we took care of that immediately. We took care of that immediately with a shared decision-making policy that put in place site-based teams that I think has helped significantly. There's other things we've done. I'm not sure what little items are still needed to be done there, but I think we're pretty close on that. Real-world experiences is really pushed forward at the K-12 level with our principals, and I think we're making major strides there with, and I think there's new programs in place. We also had the Seal of Civic Readiness was one of the pieces of that. There's a multitude of things. So I think we're in pretty good shape there. Student engagement, we have increased student engagement across all levels, done surveys to our students. In fact, next year, the Board of Education, we've been talking about this for a few years, is going to bring a student board member onto the board. It actually became a New York State mandate, but we had already been working on it. And then clear and targeted communication, we have Parent Square and a multitude of other things that support that.
The strategic plan was a tremendous amount of work that was done by a very important group of community members and staff. And I think that we are very fortunate for some of the outcomes of the plan. And I'm very grateful to the administrative staff who has implemented many of the components of this strategic plan that we most recently completed. The shared decision-making policy has been fantastic. We have implemented this throughout the district at all the building levels. And I think that we have borne the fruits of our labor and have some wonderful outcomes and increased collaboration. From a clear and targeted communication perspective, I think this is an evolution of this is not something that you're going to complete. This is a moving target, and I think all relationships are only as good as the quality of the communication that exists between the parties. So I don't know that we would ever have our clear and targeted communication completed. I think it's something that is an ongoing topic of conversation, and I think there's absolutely room for improvement, and it would be fairly abnormal if there wasn't. But I will say that through the utilization of Parent Square, we now have multi-language translation opportunities available in most languages that the end user can select at their preference. At the end of the day, I think that the strategic plan has been a wonderful tool. It has definitely helped become a beacon for our administration team to utilize for the future direction of Hendrick Hudson.
How important do you think school ratings are and how much weight should be given to them? What factors should be used in assessing student successes as well as our district's performance?
There's a lot of different school rating systems out there, so that's kind of hard to answer because each of them uses different weights and different values for things like testing, for buildings, for class size, for the number of teachers, for the number of enrichment programs. For example, when you're moving up here and you go to Zillow, it's great schools, and it's like, are you an 8 or are you a 7? You know, and then there's a school that's a 4. It's really difficult to say, but I think that the biggest thing for me when I was looking at districts and when I'm always looking, for me, it's about like the overall experience. And if that's really high, that to me would be probably my top rating that I would look for in a school district. And that means student success and achievement, so grades and testing scores, and also student satisfaction. I think that that is also a really important thing. They learn better when they're happier, when they're content, when they're satisfied. And so I think that to me, if I was creating a safer rating system, that would be probably at the top of my list of things to ask. How are you doing and how do you feel? Are you happy here?
Can you read the question one more time, Brady?
How important do you think school ratings are, and how much weight should be given to them? What factors should be used in assessing student success as well as our district's performance?
I'm gonna make sure I touched on each of those items. So I think when you're talking about are school ratings important, I think it depends on how you're looking at this. So from a home values perspective, you can say certain school rankings are very important. But I think that there's a lot more to a school district than school rankings. You know, personally, when I bought my home here, I wasn't looking at just school rankings. I was looking at what does the school offer? What does the trajectory look like for my children once they get to high school? What do we have here as far as enrichment programs go? So, and I think a lot of the time it comes down to what does the community value, in and of itself. Like we know that Hendrick Hudson values a great deal our music and our arts programs. They do wonderful things here with music and arts. And there's so much, I could go on forever about this, but when it really depends on what you value. So we are a top rated Project Lead the Way school because we have so many students that are participating in it. That's a great measurement. So it really depends on what the community values. I would say when you're setting parameters, every single one is different. So like the great schools versus niche versus US News, they all set different parameters. They're all using different elements. But I think something very important to keep in mind is when these rankings come out, they're using older data typically, and we're going back 2 to 3 years of data. So just something to keep in mind.
So I think school rankings are important, but I don't know that there is a specific school ranking that is more important than the other. One of the most important components of a school is, do the students feel welcome? Do the students feel like they belong? And I think that if we use that as our beacon, then the rest of this sort of comes together and we make certain that we're providing the outcomes that we're looking for. I think that we should pick the components of data that matter most to us. How is student attendance? Do we have lots of school avoidance issues? Are students showing improvement? And once we start changing the trajectory of those components, I think the school rankings are going to fall in line. The rankings are not as important, but the data that is utilized, regardless of whose ranking system we're questioning or being questioned by, more importantly, we need to make certain that our students are showing growth, they feel challenged, and most importantly, that they feel welcome.
I'm sorry, it's gonna be something totally.
Okay, so from what I remember, the question is truly about ratings and rankings. And there are multiple tools out there to evaluate school districts. I think that ratings and rankings do take time to catch up. And I know that they're not always up to date when we look at them. We're looking at the past. So hopefully the trend in years forward is an improvement in ratings and rankings. But they, you know, they don't totally lie and people are looking at them. So they are important, no matter how many times I've been told that ratings, oh, you can't really go by that. You can't really, people do, right? They don't always have the ability to go knock on someone's door and say, hey, how do you like living here? It doesn't always exist. So anybody who's using ratings and rankings, hopefully they do their due diligence and learn about how they work. We, as a board, need to use multiple tools to evaluate student success. That is one of our main jobs, as a Board of Education. And I truly believe that all of that really comes together and improves with a positive climate and culture for teachers and students. We want teachers who are enthusiastic about coming to work and children who are really connected and making those safe relationships with trusted adults. I think if we keep moving in that direction, you will see that the academic rankings on paper will start to come up.
How would you address the best use of our district facilities to handle enrollment changes?
This is again, not a board. We do not handle what happens in facilities, who goes into what facilities, and how they're utilized. I'm actually not really sure to answer this question. I wish there was more detail to the question. In what way?
Give us a moment, please. So the questions, like I said, we took the questions and, oh, Mike, sorry. I forgot, I talk loud enough for everyone. Okay, so as we explained earlier, the question committee took the questions that were presented by the community and they tried to combine and make them so they were kind of general, so you could get the whole feel for like 6 different questions that we put into one. So we just talked with the 2 members who are here, and what we're gonna do is take the next question, which is kind of where this one came from, and we're gonna combine them into one. So the question that was just asked, we're gonna ask you the next one along with it, and I think you'll get a feel for why we're asking the question. I probably should have said that.
All right, so back to the first one. How would you address the best use of our district facilities to handle enrollment changes? And then to add to that, how would you address current overcrowding at FGL, particularly shared spaces such as lunchroom, gym, and music room?
You're not gonna like this is not our role. This is not the role of the board in any capacity. We rely on our administrative team to monitor enrollment at every step. So, and I also think that this question is based a little bit on rumor, not fact, because it has not been presented to the community in any capacity that Franchi Lindsay is overcrowded. Do we know that there's changes that could be made there? I mean, I'm sure there could be. But again, it's not really up to the board to make these decisions. If there is an issue with enrollment at any particular building, it would be up to the administrative team to come to the board with a plan and solution and suggestions. If it was related to policy, governance, and things like that, we don't assign teachers to buildings. We don't, we uphold the contract, but through our administrative team, it's not as cut and dry as it might seem to the community, I guess is really the real long and the short of this answer. There's gonna be ebbs and flows in enrollment, and I think we know that because we have more students at the high school. And if you look at each grade as it goes down, the lower grades are smaller. So it will adjust, and if there's a need, the board will address it.
I think this may be a short answer. I'll answer the question from the perspective of how would I handle a parental complaint if they came to me with issues at FGL? Because the balance of the question, again, is not our purview, and our job is not to manage the day-to-day of the administrative staff. It's actually inappropriate in many ways. Again, it's not to correct the people asking the question. They're great questions, and this is maybe a great opportunity for the community to get a better understanding of what the role and responsibility of a board actually is. So from my perspective, the answer would be very simple. I would bring the question probably to the board president and ask her if she's heard the same, or whomever the board president is. In this case, it's currently Erica. And then I would probably ask if She wanted me to relay to Mike, she wanted to relay to Mike, so that the parent felt heard. And then just ask them to please make certain that they looked into the complaint to make sure there wasn't an actual problem, and if there was, to utilize their resources to correct it. Where we would get involved would be if there was an issue from an enrollment perspective, or maybe there was an over enrollment in a specific section that required a financial decision because they needed to split a class, and would we support having to add a teacher in order to accommodate the increased enrollment. That's the perspective of the board. The balance of the question would be simply my role as a human and my interest, and I don't know that that's necessarily appropriate as an answer as a BOE forum.
All right, yes, this question is absolutely not something that the board has purview over or control of. While I know the buildings pretty well at this point, I think I've been in every nook and cranny of some of them. It's certainly not my role as a 1/7 of a board to figure out how to best utilize our facilities. There's people who are in charge of that and much more knowledgeable than I am. To my knowledge, and my past knowledge as a board member, there were no capacity issues. And certainly if they were to come up, we would have to problem solve, not we, the district, not the board. We do monitor enrollment. Usually we have 5-10 years out projections. And, you know, the trend was enrollment was going down. I don't know that that's accurate anymore, and it probably needs to be updated, and perhaps it is. I'm not currently sitting on the board. But definitely monitoring enrollment is something that we do on a daily basis in the school district. When I say we, I mean the district, not the board. And if there was any sort of challenge with enrollment or any sort of drastic fluctuations or a large group of children moving in, that would be an administrative problem. And if it had any sort of financial obligation, it would come to the board.
So I think of the board also as a sounding board for the community to bring their concerns about the district to members of a board that sit to make the policies and to set the guidelines and to vote on the budgets. At least that's my vision for the board, that you would actually listen to when the community is saying, or the teachers are saying, or whoever's telling you that there's a potential issue with overcrowding or there's not enough classrooms, whatever. I know that there are some imbalances. The imbalance that was created through Plan B after Princeton Plan was reorganized that gave the class sizes at Furnace Woods more children than there were at BV because of the zoning. And that is something that was under the board's purview. So I do think that there are some things that are the responsibility of the board that we do need to take responsibility for. And that we do need to listen to the community and our administrators in each building if they're saying, we think we might have too many kids, we need more classrooms, and to reconfigure that we actually do bring that to the administration and make sure that those concerns are heard and make sure that they're addressed if they're brought to us. I don't think that just saying that's not our job is enough. I think that causing the imbalance in the schools in the first place is something that we should actually work to correct.
I'm gonna have rebuttal.
Okay, got 30 seconds.
All right, so the boards so here's the issue with being on the board. If an issue doesn't come to us, we're not aware of it. So it usually comes to us through a community email. It will come to us through someone at the board meeting coming to us and speaking to us, but if we don't know it and we're not living it, we don't know it. So it's hard for us to address things that we aren't unaware of. We also depend on our administrative team to come to us with issues that are financial. As far as the decision that was made and the imbalance of the class sizes, 3-5 is 3-5, there's no imbalance. Everyone's in the same place. So that can't be an issue.
Jeremy, so since we combined those and we started off with Erica, we're gonna go to Jeremy. Yes, Jeremy.
If elected, how would you handle a situation where you strongly disagree with the majority of the board? And how would you see your role as a trustee in balancing board oversight with respect for the administration's professional expertise?
Could you ask me that again, please?
If elected, how would you handle a situation where you strongly disagree with the majority of the board? And how do you see your role as a trustee in balancing board oversight with respect for the administration's professional expertise?
Great question. So I think the answer is we are 1/7, and our job is to have discussions, to listen to the other 6 members of the board, and to share our opinion in a respectful and sometimes passionate fashion. Our job is to advocate for the things that we care about and in the fashion that we believe they should be executed. Our job is also to be a member of a board, and when the vote comes, the board is to support the consensus of the board. Even as a board member, if I disagree, I have an opportunity to share my point of view. I have an opportunity to try to persuade other people on the board to see it in the same manner in which I do. And if I am not able to persuade the group, or if the group itself is on a different course than my specific angle or perspective or interest or desire, then my job is to accept the decision of the board and to support the consensus. My vote is my opportunity to disagree, but it is not my opportunity to continue to disrupt. In terms of the administration, our job is to support them in carrying out the votes of the board. And the last part, I'm sorry, I don't fully recall the question. Could you, just the last part, could you hit pause for me on that real fast? I just want to hear that last part of the question with the administration, please.
The second half would be, and how do you see your role as a trustee in balancing board oversight with respect for the administration's professional expertise?
So I think I've referenced several times this evening that it is the administration's role to carry out these duties. And I think that building relationships with these administrators, with specifically the superintendent, allows us the opportunity to share when we don't agree with the manner in which they're carrying something out. We evaluate the superintendent.
All right, so having previously served on the board, I've obviously encountered this many times. It's 7 people that have to come together and talk through, understand, evaluate, get the information, have discussions, whether it be, as a group, or if you're just struggling with something, you call one of your trustees and say, hey, how do you feel about this? I'm struggling, whatever. And if there's enough, frustration around a topic, it's really important to have that group conversation. One thing that I learned probably in year 2, because again, year 1 is like you have a blindfold on and you don't know what's going on around you. I think I learned that sometimes I just may not be part of the majority. And at that point, I can vote how I want to vote, say what I need to say after I've done my due diligence and I've learned. And then my job is to support the consensus of the board. Again, 1/7, right? We individually have no power. It is as a group that we have power. So if the majority of the board is in agreement, that's the way that it goes. In regards to the admin board piece, I think I've been, sort of in that position with both of those, whether, maybe I don't understand exactly why the administration is making a decision, but the rest of the board gets it and they're on board and they feel good about it. Okay, let's go. We're not always going to agree, right? But we have to agree to disagree and move on.
So this is sort of like my expertise because I work with kids who have learning and developmental delays. And one of the biggest features of these children when they can't communicate effectively is that they often have outbursts or meltdowns or tantrums. And so my job is to literally model calm. It's to model what I want them to come out as, which is communicating effectively, even when you're upset, even when you don't get your way, even when you're told no. You still have to be able to use your words effectively. You still have to be able to get what you want in the end, but you have to do it the right way. So this is literally what I do all the time, every day. So it's sort of like the same thing with adults, I feel. You can just model calm. You can use your words. You can speak effectively. You can feel passionately about something without getting upset about it. That's how we should all really effectively operate. It would be ideal. I know we don't all work that way. And yeah, you are 1 of 7. There are other people with other voices and other opinions, and they also do need to be respected. But I think it is important that we are able to use our voices as individual board members. And I do like the idea that we can disagree and be respectful.
Can you reread the question, please?
If elected, how would you handle a situation where you strongly disagree with the majority of the board? And how do you see your role as a trustee in balancing board oversight with respect for the administration's professional expertise?
Okay, so there are very clear board protocols and recommendations from New York State School Boards Association and in our training on how to handle when you are not aligned with the consensus of the board. So every single person on a school board and any other board, when leading up to a decision is happening, deserves to have a voice and gets to have that voice and gets to speak. That's the way that we run our board table. That is the way that we operate. And once all that is said and done and a vote happens, it is key and important and part of our board protocols to follow the consensus and the decision of the board. And it's not always easy to do, and it always, you have to be calm and composed. And it's so important to remember that you are one of seven, and like I said, consensus is really key. As far as the administrative oversight, I mean, we work with our administrative team. The most important relationship in a school district is that of the school board and the superintendent. When you have a healthy relationship with the school board and the superintendent, things move on, things do well, and you can meet your goals.
How should the school board balance providing a quality education with the need to respond to the local taxpayer burden? How should the school board balance providing a quality education with the need to respond to the local taxpayer burden?
Yeah, I don't love that question, I'm gonna be honest. Sir, well, so I think we've been doing that the last few years that I've been involved. I think that the needs of our students are always factored into the budget building process. I've never been part of the board, as well as this year when I was not part of the board, and said that the need to provide the students with the proper education and all of the tools and resources that they need, but we're not gonna worry about the taxpayers. That's never happened. It's always factored in. It's gotten more and more precise each year as we've gone on to make sure that all of the needs are being met and that we're also balancing. Because we have a large part of our community that don't have children in schools and they're just concerned about the tax bill that arrives in the mail. It's been very important to me while serving on the board that we didn't exceed tax cap. Unfortunately, taxes do go up and they have to go up, especially with all of the financial constraints that we're facing. However, we've done a very good job at making sure that we're not passing a large burden onto taxpayers. So it's very important that we continue to do zero-based budgeting, look at every line of the budget, where are the dollars going? The dollars need to be going into the classroom, for sure, but we have to be mindful that there's a lot of community members on fixed incomes.
I think that's a great way to say everything that you just said, that the boards in the past have done a great job. They've been really fiscally responsible. They've kept the taxes reasonable, especially for Westchester. And I think that that is the job of the board, is to continue keeping our district with the offerings that we have and the quality that we have, and also keeping our taxes reasonable. So I agree with you completely. And I think that continuing the way that the board has been and this district has been fiscally responsible without sacrificing a lot of enrichment, a lot of programs, and a lot of the quality is key. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of this district, and I'm proud of the past boards for doing such a good job with that. That's why I live here.
Can you repeat the question, please?
How should the school board balance providing a quality education with the need to respond to the local taxpayer burden?
I think of some other things to say. I think that we've done a very good job as a board, the last few years of addressing a multitude of different things to make sure that we're not just rolling over the budget and using the same numbers in different items, because honestly, we were getting a huge chunk of money from Indian Point. It was nearly $25 million per year. And we don't necessarily have the facilities to show for it, right? When you think about that chunk of money that now we are subsidizing, on the backs of our taxpayers, yes, we are keeping the tax base low, but it's gonna hit a point where it's going to impact our community, right? It's going to impact our students, it's gonna impact our kids. And I think we have done a really good job fiscally looking at every penny, making sure that we have the reserve funds, and ensuring that people don't get taxed out of their homes. That is our ultimate goal. There is no conversation like Alexis had that says putting students first is going to be a burden on our taxpayer, right? It's a whole part of a whole conversation we have about, where we have this much reserves. How are we gonna utilize it year to year? And this is a conversation we had this year in a 6-hour budget day on a Saturday morning where we talked about all this, so.
This is a fair question. It's a little hard to answer it in a varying degree amongst 4 people. Every year we have $4 million gap that we have to make up. We have a cessation fund that reduces by $2 million in a drawdown annually. And then we have contractual obligations with their built-in incremental increases that puts us at somewhere between a $4 million gap. The most important thing to do is to have consistency in programming while also tweaking it to the needs of the changing student body, because year after year, the interest, the needs of our students have changed and will continue to change, while also varying the different obligations that are put forth from New York State. Utilizing the tax cap, which is not 2% for the people in the community who think it's a fixed 2%. It is a number that changes every year, and it's based on a multitude of different factors. And probably sometime in the new year, we will find out what our approximate tax cap will be, and then it hones in over the next month or so where we're given a more precise number. Utilizing that figure to understand what we can maintain and what we can add to increase the opportunities for our kids and in educational enhancements is most important. When we have obligations that now will cost us to go over the tax cap or utilize more of our energy reserve funds, that's the conversation that has to be had in public so we can understand how to best accommodate the needs of the staff and the students while also being mindful of the community and the taxpayers.
As a board member, should the need arise, where would you look to make budget cuts and what areas would you prioritize maintaining?
Hey. Go first for this one. Yeah, gosh, I don't want to cut anything. I like it all. That's my answer. No, but truly, there will be times when budget cuts will have to be made, inevitably, I think. But the one thing I really want to make sure that as a board member, the staff, the teachers, the administration, the building staff, they should not be sacrificed for budget cuts, in my opinion. They are human capital, and they were hired for a reason. And so I think we should do everything possible as a board to try not to sacrifice this staff and the human capital that this district has built and worked so hard to hire thoughtfully. So I would definitely say I would not try to cut staff and teachers. So I know that's not exactly the right answer. What would I cut? I think one of the things I know that we have a lot of in this district are consultants. So what I thought we had was a lot of consultants, and I think we could do professional development with the staff that we have instead of paying outside people to come in and do that. We've got a lot of great professionals already in our buildings.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with cuts. So it's really not about what I would cut. You have to look at enrollment very closely, and see what staff you have to have for the students in front of you. So that's the first thing I think we look at every year. We had a retirement incentive this year that was public. It will help us in the long term, and it will also help us through attrition. Not to have, so we're not losing staff. We're only replacing those that we need based on our enrollment and the needs of our students. I was actually going to say, one thing that we have done as a board the last 3 years is cut consultants. We hardly use consultants at all for anything. It is we have relied on our staff. We started a professional development committee. We want our staff to help and train and have the training that they want to receive or that they need to receive. So this is one of our big priorities. The strategic plan cost this district over $240,000. That was before my time. When I got on the board and I knew I had to sign something that was $160,000, the 7 of us almost died, okay? That's not what we want here. We will never do that again. You cannot spend money that way. So if I had to cut anything, it would be those wasteful things. If it's not for students first, then it's not.
Hard question. I think the data is going to drive the areas where we need to find efficiencies. And we say efficiencies because cuts mean you are losing something completely. Efficiencies may mean that you're looking for an opportunity, right? The focus here first is children and our students. So the goal is, how do we create an efficiently run organization that will deliver the most important components of an educational opportunity to the children in our district? That is priority number 1 as far as I'm concerned. There are hard decisions that have to be made, and that's why we need a board full of people who are comfortable making difficult decisions while keeping the student as the beacon for this process. Data drives all of these decisions, and frankly, the administration is going to bring to us the areas that they feel will have the least amount of impact. We have used very creative opportunities over the past couple of years to find ways to use early retirement incentives or retirement incentives so that some teachers who may be looking for an opportunity to maybe leave would now have an incentive to do so, and they could be replaced with a new teacher that is going to cost the district less for a much longer period, or fewer dollars for a much longer period of time. I think there's creative opportunities that can be done. I think at some point, without cuts, there's contract negotiations coming up. I don't want to make too many thoughts, but there are ways that you can look at things from an HR perspective and lean on the administration.
Okay, I have a lot of thoughts here. My first experience with the zero-based budgeting and the new budget format that we went through beginning 2 years ago, I would continue to look for unused lines, so reallocating funds constantly. And I also believe that I would rather staff appropriately and pay our staff well and retain them and keep them happy and be well paid than to just continue to add staff members where they're probably not needed. So we need data to continue to lead our administration to figure out where the needs are, how do we staff it appropriately, because I rather pay people more and keep them happy than to just keep hiring unnecessary positions. So that's really important. Right now, not a great topic or a great idea, but perhaps in the future, there's always the opportunity to restructure bonds, right? So you can save money and that might take a few $100,000 or whatever off of a loan that we're paying for a capital project. I believe when I was on the board, I had to sign some ridiculously large dollar amount, but we restructured and we saved money by doing so. So that's another idea. I believe that all money should go to the classroom and our facilities. But in terms of cutting, I think you can cut by going through a budget year over year and looking for those efficiencies that Jeremy mentioned.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion mean to you, and what changes, if any, would you like to see made to the district's DEI policy?
So DEI is a very political acronym, right? Every single thing that we do as a school board, every single policy that we write, every single bit of curriculum, every single conversation is rooted in the acceptance of our students and their diversity, ensuring that they receive equity at every level, and if they feel like they are included and belong. So that's the long and short of it when it comes to what that acronym means to me and how I lead in this work for myself. And I always have for many, many years. In 2020 or 2021, New York State recommended a DEI policy for the school district. And we implemented it. It was Jeremy, Alexis, and I, and several other board members at the time. August 2023, we implemented the DEI policy for the Hendrick Hudson School District. We have not wavered from that. We have no intentions of changing any of it right now. And I think that's kind of where this is going. What are we changing in it? I have no intentions of changing anything unless we are forced to, because we're going to lose some kind of funding. And what that comes down to is what's recommended to us as a board. No matter what, that policy needs to exist and make sure that every child feels like they belong and have everything that they need to learn at Hendrick Hudson.
So once upon a time, this was called multicultural education. The educational system has for a very long time been far ahead of its time when it comes to providing students what they need and having a sense of belonging. Equity means giving someone what they need, meeting them where they are. We have a special ed department, we have an art department, we have sports, we have sorry, I blanked. We have built an entire environment around making students feel that they are welcome, that they belong. We provide Parent Square that allows student families to receive communication from our district in all the languages that they prefer, in a multitude of languages that each of the households prefers. These components of the educational system are the foundation of education. Giving students what they need is not a political topic. I think that the acronym is considered political because of maybe a corporate world implementation and determination on how it should or shouldn't be used, but I don't think there's any place for it in our schools. We are well ahead of the curve. We have a policy here to make sure that students are welcome and to make sure that we are giving them what they need. AP classes are another opportunity, remedial classes to help kids AIS get caught up so that they can be back on grade level. These are all forms of equity and they are being practiced at Henfield today.
All right, so Jeremy mentioned some of it. DEI is definitely a political acronym. I'd like to refer to it as diversity, equity, and inclusion. I just do. A lot of the work that happened while I was on the board was the start of a lot of new great changes, such as some of the communication tools that Jeremy mentioned. I was part of the board that wrote and implemented our diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. Part of the reason I chose to live in Hen Hud and raise my kids here was because we have natural diversity. And I think that we are kind of supported by legislation that equity exists, but as a board, we write policy and uphold policy that really brings different perspectives, equity and inclusion forward. My focus has always been on making sure that every student feels safe, supported, and ready to learn. Don't like the politics side of it. That's just good education, right? I mean, that is our job as a school district. An example would be restructuring UPK. We got the grant from the state to implement UPK, and the board that I sat on, we restructured so that we made an equitable decision that every child had access to fair and equal and equitable education for preschool. That's just one example. And I'm almost done.
This is a hot topic just in the world, in the country in general. So I looked up the districts, when I was doing my homework on the district website, our DEI policy, the districts diversity, equity, inclusion policy, and I was thrilled to see that it is so strong. Diversity is one of the highlights of this district in this neighborhood in Westchester. We have such a diverse cultural population. It's wonderful to see, and it is, like Alexis, one of the reasons I love living here. We can learn so much from each other, and the kids can learn so much from each other. I love seeing the multicultural festivals and events. The HHCSD did a multicultural festival recently. The middle school was just doing one, and they learned about each other's cultures. It's beautiful to see. Equity is a level playing field. Every child gets the same opportunity, no matter where you live, no matter where you're from, no matter who you are. That's a beautiful thing. And inclusion is very important, and it's very important to me because I work with kids who are in special education to make sure that they have the least restrictive environment possible, that they are made to feel comfortable where they are, but also given the opportunity to matriculate up with their cohort so that they can stay in that social setting for as much as possible, because as important as academics are, so are socialization skills for these kids. So inclusion is near and dear to my heart. So I love our policy and I want to be here to defend it.
What is your position on the current state of sports programs in our school district? And how do you plan to support their development and enhancement?
Sports have been a major part of my life since I was a child. I played sports multiple seasons a year in Hendrick Hudson, and including playing football after when I went to college. I think that the importance of sports I think that the involvement in sports is incredibly important for the development, both of children and of young adults. And I think that it is an excellent opportunity to learn leadership skills, teamwork, and recognizing that you are part of a system, and your ability to contribute can make or break the difference between the outcomes that your team is looking to achieve. I think that our sports program is solid, and I think that, like all things, there is definitely an opportunity for improvement. That's not a slight to the sports program. I think that we have a strong and healthy program. We added the flag football team for the girls in the high school recently, which is fantastic, and we've seen a lot of young ladies change some sports and found a new opportunity or play a new sport that never participated in that season. The sports programs are incredibly important. I would like to see them grow. I would like to see us continue to improve our facilities to support programs outside of the turf field that we have at the high school. And I think it would be fantastic if we could continue to develop athletes at Hendrick Hudson.
All right, so anybody that knows me knows that the sports programs are near and dear to my heart. I actually help run our youth lacrosse program, and I frequent all of the games here. I was one of the Hen Hud volleyball players and part of that very successful program. I attribute much of my leadership skills to Coach Swartfager. She definitely makes an impact on the kids, and I know how much sports can do so. I think more than ever, with children attached to electronics, mine included, it's really important that they have that outlet to go be outdoors, be with friends, build relationships, and not just be home indoors on iPads and video games. So sports are probably second to the music and the arts in Hen Hud. I think it's a toss-up, probably second to it. Very important. I'm excited. Mr. Baker's been here for a while. I have a great relationship with him and I adore him. And I know that we are actually hiring for that position. So that'll be an exciting new adventure for the district as well. So did I answer the question? I don't know. I love sports and I'm here for it. And I hope that we can find some retiring debt and get another turf field.
Yeah, Hen Hud sports they're killer. The high school especially has got some great teams, super competitive. I love the girls flag football team. I've got a middle schooler who's very excited to get involved with that when she gets to the high school level. And one of the things I've noticed actually now that she's in middle school is that they could use a lot of help with their sports and their teams and their fields. So we play there a lot, and the softball field and the soccer field at Blue Mountain half the time are not playable because they're flooded, they're muddy, there's no drainage. And those are teams that are supposed to be competing against other middle school teams, but they can't even play on their own fields half the time because they're in such horrible condition. And not only do the middle school teams, but the town teams also play there. So as soon as one team plays, the fields are chewed up. So I really think that we could pay some more attention if we did find some financing to do some work on our fields at the middle school. Another thing is that the modified sports don't start till 7th grade. So we've got a 6th grade group of kids who came from 5th grade and came from the town who really have nothing to do for a year as far as sports go. So I'd love to see if maybe we could talk about extending, it's gonna be great to have a new athletic director and see what ideas they bring in. And I'd love to see if maybe we could get some more of those 6th graders, because that's where you see a lot of the fall off from these kids, especially girls who don't love sports when they were kids and then they fall off at that age. So it would be a good thing to look into, that middle school, giving them a boost in their sports.
Can I rebut something?
After Artie finish and then. Can you read the question again, please?
What is your position on the current state of sports programs in our school district, and how do you plan to support their development and enhancement?
So I support sports. I support sports. I think sports are great. My kids participate in them. I'm gonna go with this a little bit, I think, a different route. I'm not really sure what, I wish I had more context for this question, because I'm not sure what. Like, we support sports. Like, we have a lot of student athletes. I think we had something like 400 this past, just in winter. So we support the sports. Every year, Mr. Baker brings us a budget and the board has supported it fully, with, being fiscally responsible and adding things. We added this year, based on feedback, intramural sports for 6th grade. I'm not exactly sure what they were because I don't have a 6th grader myself, but I know that we had them. I think soccer, I think cheerleading even had sixth grade intramural sports. So that was a great addition. I'd like to see personally expanded, but I think it's a financial constraint. I will just say one thing that I love the most about Hen HUD, very different from where I grew up, is the sailor spirit that we have here. There is nothing like going to a game at the high school and a football game, a lacrosse game, and watching our kids perform. I really would love to see more support for our baseball and softball teams and their fields, but the baseball field is not on our property, which is a little bit of a challenge. So I think there's things we can do. I don't think they're really up to the board necessarily, but I think we all support.
So I'm pretty sure I'm accurate, because as part of the planning process, I do believe that there is work being done to the middle school fields. It's part of the capital project that we just put out to the community that passed last election season. So at some point in the near future, have to ask the current board where they're at with this. The Blue Mountain fields, there are challenges there, but they are focused on improving it. So hopefully we'll see that soon.
What is the role of schools in teaching children about topics such as sex education, cyber safety, wellness, and bullying?
Okay, so currently, I do think we hit on all of those topics. I think there could be probably an expansion on cyberbullying now that there is much more technology in the hands of these children. I think parents have a responsibility at home to teach their kids about each one of these topics, but we do introduce, can you repeat each? No, I missed the first one. Cyberbullying.
Sex education, cyber safety, wellness, and bullying.
This is interesting, actually. Okay, so the cyberbullying, I just mentioned that I do think that that's something that maybe the administration could consider looking into, because I don't know what the extent that we have that. Sex ed, I do know that it begins as early as elementary school, and I was actually having a conversation with someone recently about how kids are hitting puberty earlier, and maybe we need to take a look at it because it probably was brought into the school district 20 years ago. So that's something to consider. Wellness and sex ed kind of go hand in hand, and I think that's a middle school into high school experience. bullying, that's an interesting topic. I don't know what we do or if we do enough. Obviously, the board's role is policy. We have numerous policies, recent policies that were implemented, and it's up to the administration to uphold those. But that's definitely an interesting topic, and I do think that the school district should pursue each one of those further.
This microphone is giving me something today. One of the things that is in the strategic plan that I noticed and I really liked is the holistic approach for students. Folks focusing on holistic growth, and that actually include a wellness component. So the district does actually have that built into part of our policies for students. And I would love to see that expanded more, because I think that part of our SEL, part of our mental health awareness, which is also part of our district policies, is super important, especially as kids are developing their social skills and they're learning how to adult. They need that support, and a wellness program would go really, really far to helping these kids to achieve that full sense of a personhood that you want them to come out of high school with, right? We want them to come out as adults. Cyber safety and bullying, we also talk about those things at the elementary school level. We've done some parenting advocacy workshops around that. And I definitely think that that's something that we could bring resources into to help with the students too. And I know that they do some assemblies and stuff like that. And then there is definitely a policy, and I know that all of the educators in the district get DASA training, which is the Dignity for All Students Act. And that gives very specific language and very specific guidelines around bullying. So I know that our staff and administrators are very well versed in bullying, because they're required to have that training.
Can you repeat the question, please?
What is the role of schools in teaching children about topics such as sex education, cyber safety, wellness, and bullying?
So the role of the school, so this is where the role of school is complicated. So if you think about our elementary students specifically and what they have to fit into their day to make sure that we are meeting our holistic approach to students, you're talking about SEL support, which are the mental health supports, making sure that we're introducing sex ed at an appropriate way, at an appropriate age. I think our staff does a phenomenal job at this. We also have an extensive health program. I mean, I'm sure everyone's seen the babies, right? I've had, the babies that come home with us. We have, so as far as that, we're covered. I think we probably could do more on cyber safety. I think we're introducing policy actually, very, very recent. It's gonna be up very soon. That's going to support, our staff and our administrative team on how to handle cyber safety, and also how to support teaching cyber safety. Wellness is all interfolded into, I think, on a daily basis into our curriculum and into how we teach our children. And bullying, we recently put through, I think there's 3 or 4 different policies that we have written to support this. There's also DASA, and there's also the code of conduct. Our code of conduct is very extensive. Every student and every parent signs that annually. I encourage you to read it. It really covers the gamut, especially around the expectations of the student behaviors around bullying and how to treat each other.
I think the school plays an important role in all 4 of these categories, but I think the biggest component here is learning how we can better incorporate the familial angle to support each of these different pillars. I think that you could teach children about wellness in a multitude of ways. Wellness means many different things, right? There's mental health, there's physical health, there's diet. And I think it'd be wonderful if we could find ways as a district, and maybe in curriculum in general, to incorporate familial learning in this process. Because I think there's probably a lot of families who can't necessarily support the wellness programs that we would like to deliver as a district, because they may be unfamiliar as well. It's hard to teach children to read if their parents aren't able to read and they're not getting the support at home. And I'm not certain that any of these categories stand alone, that they wouldn't be best if it's not with parental support. Cyber safety is fantastic to teach your children, but if they're not supported at home and the parents don't understand grade appropriate, age appropriate parameters, then it's not going to necessarily lend to a to a well-behaved child when it comes to life on the web. So my position on this is that I think there is a role. I think it is a very important role that needs to be incorporated with the family.
I don't know. Where am I? Yeah, Allison. Okay. More?
Final question of the evening. What are your areas of concern regarding student achievement in your district, and how do you plan on addressing them as a trustee?
Areas of concern. Well, one of the things I learned when I was talking to people leading up to this about, how the students are doing as far as like matriculating up from the elementary school to the middle school to the high school. Where are they succeeding and where are they falling behind? And one of the things that I learned was the ELA program we were using was causing some kids to not be up to speed by the time they got to high school with reading. So we've got a new curriculum in place that is being trained in all of the schools and all of the elementary schools. And it's being used with all the kids and all the teachers. And I'm hoping that in time, we will see those test scores as those kids grow up and get to the high school level to see if their literacy and writing levels are as high as we would hope that they would be, and that their test scores reflect the improved curriculum over what we were using before. So for student achievement, again, like I'm gonna say, you know, testing and everything is important, but also I want to make sure that the kids feel safe and that they belong and that they're part of a community that they love and that they're proud of. So I want to just make sure that the kids are happy at their schools. Reading, can you read the question?
What are your areas of concern regarding student achievement in your district, and how do you plan on addressing them as a trustee?
So my areas of concern always going to be about how are students ready to learn when they walk into a classroom, right? That's the first and foremost thing. That how they feel when they are sitting in a room is the achievement, what you're going to get from them. That also works with the partnership with the school and the family at home, right? So I think that's an area of concern. I have a concern around our curriculum, and if our curriculum is fully meeting the needs of our students. I know we just did a full K-12 math committee and a review on our math, and I think our elementary school teachers are actually considering moving to a different program, or at least looking at something. Maybe the middle school is looking at something. So there's a lot of movement there because our staff's putting in the work. So I think our concerns around curriculum are shifting. That would have been my original. I'm concerned about student success and making sure that the kids that need interventions are receiving them AIS and that they're moving to MTSS appropriately. We've done a lot of work. We've actually added a lot of AIS supports this year for our students to make sure that they're getting what they need and that hopefully our literacy numbers and our numeracy numbers improve. And then we have a planned pilot that we're working on at the high school to address. So that we're addressing a lot of these things. And also remember, New York State is moving away from the rote regents exams. So there's a lot of changes coming.
So from using a business brain, the answer would be simple. We look at test scores, but what I've learned, test scores don't tell the story about student outcomes completely. I think what really needs to take place is a continuation of analyzing scores to determine where we're seeing a change, not necessarily with the score, but are we seeing that kids are progressing on a trajectory? Is there a dip at some point? Is it a social emotional issue? Is there something going on due to transitioning from a particular point in life to another? There's a lot of development that goes on from the moment you receive students and now in our case, UPK and through until they graduate. The manner in which we support students and their outcomes is by working with our superintendent and challenging him to continue working with his administrative team. using the shared decision-making policy that we have and the shared decision-making teams, and supporting from a financial perspective with budget allocation, opportunities for us as a district to provide the support children need. For the past few years, AIS, which is Academic Intervention Services, and I'll say that because I'm really bad at the acronyms, and I often have to ask someone to tell me what they mean. Is typically indicative of a specific group of children, but it was not necessarily supporting all of the children that needed to get to the desired level by the end of graduation. So what we've learned over the last 12 months is that we now have an opportunity to provide a broader stroke of support, because just because a child is not within a certain percentage, there may still be a bit below grade level.
Okay, I have a lot of notes all over my paper. So I think when we think of student achievement, we have to think about more than just grades. I think for some students, achievement looks different than just seeing an improvement in test scores. I think that we need an administration that's really present and connected to our staff so that everybody's working very collaboratively. And I think that you will see achievement improve with positive cultures, positive climate changes. I think if we can continue to work at parent involvement and engagement, I think that there's a direct correlation between student success and parent engagement and involvement. I know that's like a never-ending battle, but we have to keep trying. I think that one of the factors is obviously always looking at data. I'm leaving that to the end because I like the other things that I had to say first, but there's COVID impacts, there's generational changes, and curriculum beyond just elementary. What good is it if we perfect, ELA curriculum for K through 5? We need to focus on 6 through 8 and high school as well. So hopefully with the assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction, all of those things can be looked at. But I think my point being that student achievement is far greater than just academic skills. For some children, it looks very different. Whether it be in the sports field, music, maybe they're going to our BOCES tech program and they're accelerating there, whatever it is, that's also achievement.
And with that, we have come to the end of the Q&A part of this forum. Each candidate will now have 1 minute and 30 seconds for a closing statement. We will go in the reverse order from opening statements. So the order will be Jeremy, Erica, Allison, and Alexis.
So the theme of my closing statement will be gratitude. Thank you. Thank you to our PTA Advocacy Committee. Thank you for the time and effort you put forth to help make this event possible. To the League of Women Voters, thank you for supporting our PTA Advocacy Committee. And to our wonderful students, thank you. Thank you for representing our community in such a positive and respectful manner and leading our evening as moderators. I truly appreciate your service. Thank you. To my family, thank you. My mom, my sister, and my wife are here. Thank you for supporting me in this role of trustee. Thank you for your support in my first term and the support I'll need if the community chooses me again on election day. I love you guys so much. To the previous trustees with whom I've had the pleasure to serve, thank you as well. I've enjoyed the camaraderie, teamwork, and opportunity to learn from and work alongside each of you. To the overall community, I would be honored to represent you in service to all members of our school community, but most importantly, our students. The learning curve in the first term is steep and time-consuming, not only for the candidate, but for the trustees and the administrative staff as well. Continuity and consistency are crucial to maintain the course we have set over the last 3 years as we push for continued and measurable improvement. Continuity of leadership allows the focus to remain on improving student outcomes and experiences while fostering a supportive environment where all students feel a sense of belonging. Please vote for Jeremy Basso for continuity and consistency on May 20th. And of course, I encourage the community to also support the budget, the library, and all of the propositions on this year's ballot. Thank you and good night.
I want to once again extend my heartfelt thanks to the Hendrick Hudson PTA Advocacy Committee for their tireless work in bringing this forum to our community. A special thank you as well to our dedicated students who served as moderators tonight. You are the future of our district and your leadership is truly inspiring. I would also like to thank the other candidates for their dedication and for committing to so much of their time to the Hendrick Hudson community. It's been a privilege to share this space with you and to be part of this important conversation about our schools. As I've mentioned throughout this evening, my work on the Board of Education has always been driven by one core principle, putting students first. Every decision I make, every policy we implement, and every step we take together is with the intention of making Hen Hud a place where every student feels valued, supported, and inspired to reach their fullest potential. But none of this can be done alone. It's the collaboration between staff, students, parents, and the community that truly makes us stronger. Looking ahead, I'm committed to continuing the work of ensuring that our students' needs come first, that our schools are well-funded and maintained, and that we have strong, effective policies in place to guide us. I'm here to listen, learn, and act on behalf of our entire community. If you ever have any questions or concerns or ideas, please don't hesitate to contact me. You can reach me by email or follow me on Facebook. I'm always available and eager to hear from you. I love connecting with people. I respectfully ask for your vote so we can continue building a bright, successful future for every Hen Hud student. Thank you again, and I look forward to working together to ensure the continued success of our district.
I too am gonna say thank you to the advocacy committee for putting this together. Thank you guys for doing an excellent job at moderating. Appreciate you spending your evening with us. Thank you all for being here and for everybody watching. This was a long night, but we got some good answers, and I feel like I learned a lot. I feel like actually through this whole candidacy process, I have learned so much, more than I knew before about our district. And it actually makes me even motivated more to want to be on the Board of Trustees, because the Board of Education as a trustee, because I feel like I appreciate what we can do, and I feel like I can bring a lot more of my skills and my knowledge to the board, to enhance it, to make it better, to bring more connection. I think that one of the things that has kind of come up during this campaign is that it's kind of felt like we're running against each other, or these guys are running against me, but I want everybody to know that I'm only running for one seat. I am running for the seat, not against anybody. This is something I care about. This is something I want because I love education. I love kids. I love these schools, and I really genuinely care. So I hope that if you want me to have this seat, that you will vote for me, because this is something that I feel like would be a benefit to our community, and I would be very, very grateful.
All right. Hendrick Hudson has always been home for me. It's where I grew up, where I met my amazing spouse, and where we're now raising our 3 kids. I care deeply about this community and the schools that have given us all so much. I'm running to return to the BOE because I believe our district deserves steady, experienced leadership, someone who understands where we've been and is ready to help guide where we're going. I've done the work before, I'm fully trained, and I'm ready to jump back in. Throughout my time on the board and in life, I've learned how to face tough situations head on with a calm mindset, a strong work ethic, and a commitment to never giving up. I know how to stay grounded under pressure, and I've also learned that leadership isn't about pushing my own opinions. It's about truly listening. I make it a priority to hear all voices, weigh different perspectives, and make informed decisions that reflect what's best for the whole community, especially our students. Hendrick Hudson deserves leaders who can handle challenges with resilience, clarity, and respect for every stakeholder. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn more about me tonight, and thank you to everybody who put this together, even the students who are here with us tonight. I'd be honored to earn your support and help keep Hen Hud moving in the right direction. You can reach me by email, alexisbernardboe@gmail.com. You can also follow my Facebook page, Alexis Bernard for Hen Hud School Board. Thank you all so much. Go Sailors.
Thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you for your questions. Please join me in thanking our 4 candidates. We wish everyone a good evening, and please be sure to vote on May 20th at Frank G. Lindsay Elementary School.